Hello and welcome to another episode of Beyond the Black Rims. I'm Mars Girl.
I'm Josh Knight the First.
Welcome to Season 2, Episode 9.
Or Episode 31 if you're counting.
Well, I'm not.
I know, that's my job.
Oh, well, I'm glad I have you around.
Look, I've got one job to do on this show.
What's going on, Josh?
What's going on? You wanna know what's going on?
Yeah, tell me what's going on.
Alright, this might be petty and I understand it might not appeal to some people, but I hate it when commercials work on me.
Like what?
You know dang well what I'm talking about. Those
No, I
Samsung
don't.
Galaxy Gear commercials.
Oh.
Describing the fact that, yes, we now live in an age where I can have a phone on my watch.
Yeah, but the hindrance is that you have to have it connected to your Galaxy product, of which, ours, we're on the S3s. It doesn't work for the S3 yet, but it supposedly will.
Yes, but you have to understand, that doesn't matter. Their marketing was targeted towards me. Little me, who wanted a communicator that badly in 1993 and still wants one to this day, and now they're marketing a product for somebody who wanted one.
Yeah, admittedly, they covered every single instance that the modern person could have probably gone back and cited to say, hey, you remember this piece of fiction where this technology didn't exactly exist? Well, we made it exist. And it has its limitations, that and the fact that it does have to be tethered to a phone. But,
Yeah, but I would sooner use a phone watch than I would a Bluetooth any day.
Yeah, I suppose I would too. And, the only hindrance is, one, the limitations of it's not available for the Galaxy S3 yet, and two, is $300.
I want my communicator. Want my communicator.
You really want this, huh?
Yeah, I just barely upgraded my phone, and now they do this to me. They knew dang well what they were doing, and it's working.
They knew they were going for you specifically?
Yes, they knew they were going for me
Are
specifically.
you saying that they were aiming for your wallet solely, and not anybody else's?
If not just me.
They knew you.
Anybody who was on that wavelength, who were entranced by those ideas, whether it be Power Rangers, whether it be Knight Rider, whether it be Dick Tracy, Get Smart, you wanted the watch phone in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I guess so. I think the only deterrent for me is that it's $300.
Well, yeah, that's kind of a downer.
It is cool, don't get me wrong. Granted, it has limitations, but what were you expecting? It's a little bitty watch.
Yeah.
It receives texts and emails and places phone calls.
Hey, you try and tell me you weren't one of those people or one of those kids or didn't know some of those kids or maybe even people who still do it now who would pretend to talk into their watch.
Okay, I did it.
Yeah, I did it. There's no shame in that.
I still think $300 is a bit steep, but, maybe we need to just give them some time. After all, we can't buy it yet. I'm not going to go out and get a Galaxy Note. I just
I want it, but I gotta wait.
Yeah.
I just wanted to express that the desire was very much there.
Okay, well, that's nice to hear. That having been said, that's not actually any of the news that we were planning on talking about.
Hey, you just asked me what was up. That's all that was.
That's fine with me. To discuss what we will soon be discussing, later on in the show, I'm going to be talking about Square Enix looking to pick up fan ideas to get crowdfunded and then published as brand new video games sometime in the near future.
I'm going to be talking about a new anime that just premiered today on Crunchyroll for people that are kind of in favor of tokusatsu genre shows and things like that, called Samurai Flamenco.
And to wrap it all up, we're also together going to be talking about lost episodes of Doctor Who, specifically the second Doctor, that have recently been rediscovered and recovered.
And remastered now.
Oh, they're remastered? That I didn't know. Oh, hold on there, cowboy.
Yeah, let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Slow down. Whoa, that's the last story. We don't need to be talking about it yet.
No, we don't need to talk about the last story. That wasn't that great of a game.
Oh, it was okay.
It wasn't that great.
I'm having to lie to myself. I wanted it so bad. And I got it.
You did.
And I thought it could have been good. I really did. In fact, I think the core story, there was a lot of promise. That poor Wii limitation, though. This isn't what we were talking
Oh,
about.
we of little game.
Well, that could be argued, but that having been said, is there anything else we wanted to talk about before we got into the nitty-gritty of all these news stories?
Well, it's kind of a minor follow-up, but we had talked before at some length about this next upcoming season of Power Rangers Super Mega Force. Well, right now, this weekend, we're going to be having New York Comic Con going on, and as such, there's a lot of pictures of different licensing things getting put out there, toys and games for the upcoming year, and one of these properties, of course, would be Power Rangers, and we get to get a look at the, I guess you'd call the stateside release of certain toys that we would have seen for Gokaiger, or would not have seen for Gokaiger over here. And you can see some of these photos on different various websites.
I tell you one thing, though, this just further impresses upon me how every time America gets North American versions of the exact same toys, they always just look really, really cheap in comparison.
Yeah!
This is not, of course, covering what you're about to go into. I'm just saying, in general, how is it that our interpretations of all those toys end up being crazy cheap-looking bastardizations?
Well, see, here's the problem. Like, you have the Gokai gun there, and of course, because we're in North America, it has to be given an orange blaze tip. Whereas the Japanese release did not have that problem, because there aren't that many guns to be afraid of over in Japan.
Not nearly as many, anyway.
And yeah, the toys from early reports are going to be a bit smaller in scale, specifically what they're calling the legendary morpher, or as some people would know, the Mobidettes from Gokaiger. They're going to be dealing with smaller keys, which somehow look heftier at the same time. Stockier, yeah, that's a good way of putting it. I think it's funny looking at some of these action figures. They've got it looks like their 4 or 5 inch line. They look, absolutely fine. I'm actually cool with those that line of figures. What makes me laugh is the prerequisite slightly larger, about 8 inch, super muscular figure of a Power Ranger, and specifically we have what they're calling the Red Legendary Ranger and the Green Legendary Ranger.
Gokai Red and Gokai Green.
Specifically. And it's just so funny when you think about it, because, like...
they're just so roided out.
I know. And then if you compare it, if you know Gokaiger going into this, and you see this giant roided out Gokai Green, that's laughable.
Completely opposite of the actual character type.
Right.
Like, that's just ludicrous and comical. Like, they almost said, you know what would be funny if we did this, and then passed it off like this was legit. And you know what? People think it's legit, so
yeah,
they're
people
gonna
think it's
buy it.
legit. And of course you've got the role-play masks that are so popular now in toy aisles. I'm not gonna lie, I'm probably gonna pick up the red one.
And do what with it?
And build a better mask off it.
Okay, that's what I thought.
That's what I do.
That's what I thought.
And then, of course, you've got a look at what seem to be the attachments that they'll be using for the Megazord over here. As some people would know, the Megazord that they will be using for this upcoming season will integrate pieces from older series, such as, I guess you'd refer to them as Mystic Force, SPD, things like that. What's interesting is, you can see them in some of these pictures. They're paired with a Ranger and a Ranger key corresponding to the particular series. Like, for the SPD car, there's an SPD Ranger key. Okay, that's fine.
That makes sense.
What's interesting is they're also putting out keys and figures, little, what look like add-ons that don't necessarily belong and weren't actually there in the original run. Like, I can see of course, the Maji Ranger, Deca Ranger, and, which one is that? Not Gao Ranger. Well, they're there on the screen, but they've also got O Ranger, which fans would know over here as Power Ranger Zeo. That is one of those American, you can't get around it, add-on, well, we'll make this work with the combination system that we're implementing sort of things. That's just really, for the most part, it's unnecessary when any other series does it, but here I can get why they would get away with it. Because you want as much nostalgic feeling to come back into toy buyers' minds that, you know what, maybe I should buy this because I liked that series.
Wait, I'm a little confused as to what you're saying. Like, there's nostalgia for toys of things that don't actually exist in the show.
Yeah, I know that's confusing to say, but it's basically, normally I would rag on the company for trying to do that, but here is the only time I could see them getting away with it.
Why? Why are you giving that to them?
Because I'm a sucker.
Because it's what you know they've always done, and therefore their really bad toy implementation is nostalgic now? Is that what you're telling me?
In a weird way, because I think back to like Power Rangers in Space, which was the first time they implemented something into the American footage that wasn't there in the Japanese, which was the armor they gave the Red Space Ranger. And I remember being younger and being geeked out over that, and yeah, I can kind of see that coming back here. I'm not proud of it, but I'm admitting it's there.
So then if you're not proud of it, then why are you giving them the pass? You know what? I think you're just lost. I think you're a lost child.
Because I'm a consumer whore.
And how? You're lost.
Yeah, I might be a little lost.
I don't think there's any saving you.
No, maybe not. But we'll get more into that later.
All right.
Just a little bit.
I guess that's it for now.
Yeah.
All right.
So let's get to the show.
All right. That having been said, I'll go ahead and start with my initial topic. I'm reading specifically off of Kotaku, looking at this, and then they have another source for this. There's a project that Square Enix is starting up, known as Collective, or Square Enix Collective. This is supposed to help people who have ideas for potential games and they don't have the capability of creating the games themselves. If you have an idea, will be able to pitch said game idea to Square Enix. Square Enix will then look over said game idea and go, is this worth it? And then they'll be like, yes or no. And if it's yes, then they'll be like, alright, we're going to help you figure out just what you need to make the game, and therefore just how much money you'll need to make the game. Now, we're not going to give you the money. Instead, what we're going to do is throw your project up on Indiegogo. And then if it meets the Indiegogo demand, then we're going to help you publish it and release it as a digital release. On top of that, you can also use some old IDOS characters, and they didn't specify from which games, but, IDOS before Square Enix merger, they've had, of course, all the Tomb Raider games, and the Deus Exes, and, of course, they've got Batman Arkham Asylum under their belt, so I don't know, maybe you could throw Batman into your game or something, I really couldn't say, but it sounds pretty promising, but at the same time,
to me, it still sounds a little bit fishy.
Well, there's a couple of things that I can see hindering this. One, I'm really concerned that people are going to be sick of crowdfunding in the not-too-distant future. Mm-hmm. And then two, do you really want to give your idea to Square Enix, of all people? If you go with Square Enix, Square Enix is a pretty notable, reputable company, but then they're also notable for making really silly decisions and just acquiring. They ate up Taito and IDOS and all kinds of other little smaller game companies. And then they also want to eat up your idea on top of that. And then there it goes. It's no longer your idea. So you really got to be really careful about who you pitch this game idea to.
See, this reminds me of something a couple of years ago that happened. There was this short-lived, I think it was only one season that they did it on the Sci-Fi Channel.
It was
2. 2 seasons of this show called Who Wants to Be a Superhero? It was sponsored by Marvel. And they went around, shopping people out, okay, you bring us your superhero ideas, and then we'll see who gets the full-on treatment and becomes an actual superhero, there through the reality show. But I think part of the drawback of it, and you can attest to this, you actually tried out for it.
Well, yeah, because I gave them an idea that I was pretty sure they weren't going to pick up anyway, even though I thought it was still a cool idea anyway. And, man, years ago, you can still see footage of this on my YouTube channel from years ago. I pitched a character by the name of Lens who, obviously, I can see why they wouldn't have picked it up, because she was not, very, what is the word I'm looking for? She was more tactical and not, she didn't, like, get down and dirty in fights a lot. Mm-hmm. Like, her power was being able to project memories and things that she had seen onto digital devices like TVs and computer monitors and stuff. Therefore, if there was, say, no surveillance camera in a robbery situation and she happened to be there and see it, she could be like, oh, well, I have the evidence, and, like, put it onto a tape or something. So I pitched this to Who Wants to Be a Superhero, and of course they didn't pick up on it, and
now,
they
the
instead
thing is,
took a cop.
Well, see, here's the thing about it, though. When you went, you had to sign off forms about
your
idea.
That would not have been mine anymore had they picked it.
See, that's the drawback of it. There could be a lot of potential ideas out there that you're basically feeding to Square Enix, taking out the guesswork of having to develop an original property. You know, you pitch it to them, they can say, not now's not the time for it. But then later on down the road, you see that they're using something eerily similar. You see what I'm getting at? That's kind of a gray area there as to how much Square is really getting out of this. Because, really, I mean, I can see where the appeal is. You know, you want to tell gamers, you want to tell fans, hey, we want to listen to you. But at the same time, there's this slight overtone of we want to listen to you, but at the same time, we want to help us, the company. And personally, I can't see myself trusting something like this. On top of the fact that, yeah, with as many crowdfunding things as we've seen over the past just year, yeah, I can see people getting to a point of, okay, are you willing to crowdfund this game? Oh, I gave to the last one. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm all tapped out on my crowdfunding for the year. Yeah, I see that. Well, I mean, the interesting thing is... Thanks, Kat. The interesting thing is that it's not just Square Enix deciding is this or is this not a good idea. Like, apparently there's this collective feedback platform that an entire community will join. I guess this is forums or something. You will submit and pitch this idea, and it'll have something like 28 days for the community to read up on it and decide whether or not this would be a good idea, whether or not this would be a game that people would actually play, and then Square Enix will be like, okay, let's get you started on Indiegogo. I mean, again, it's not Square Enix giving you money, it's Square Enix saying, we will publish you if you Indiegogo this. So...
But that's pretty much just, it's business talk, it's hedging your bet ahead of time. That's pretty much taking out Square's job of having focus groups and people deciding on whether or not this idea is feasible for distribution, and then, you know, completely eliminating all the hard work they would have to do, and I'm air quoting hard work, and then saying you put it in the hands of fans, but really it's the same process regardless that you would have to go through to develop a game anyway.
Or to get it published by Square Enix.
I mean, really, the biggest comparison that we have here is let's look at Mighty Number 9. Inafune and his crew had to go through this process, too, of, is this something that we can develop? Is this something people would be interested in? That part happens regardless. It doesn't matter whose hands you put it in.
Right. This I really see more like, again, as an excuse for Square Enix to make more acquisitions. And then labeling it like it's brand new and it's never been done before. But really, the job has to be done one way or the other, and Square Enix is just pre-stamping their name on it.
Right. And really, at that point, what has really changed? You say you're putting things in the hands of the fans, but still at the bottom line, you've still got Square having to sign off on it. Even more so to the point of, you know, the Indiegogo, where does the money go to? Does it go to the developers? Does it go to the person whose idea it was? Or does it go back to the company?
Now, granted, this webpage doesn't say everything about it. They say that there's still time that they need to go through to finish wrapping up all the loose ends and tying them all up. But, so we don't have any information about where the money goes, how much money the developers get, how much money Square Enix gets. I mean, I would be really interested in knowing how much it costs, like what portion of that is simply the licensing fee.
Right.
Just to get it published, the publishing fee to get it published through Square Enix. And then I would be willing to bet that that's a pretty decent hunk of that money.
And then you would also have to be aware of the legality of it all, making sure you read through every last bit of that contract that you'd sign.
Oh, well, you'd have to
make
realize
sure you don't get screwed out of anything.
Yeah, well, you'd have to realize that that game is no longer in your hands.
Right.
Like, as soon as you're done with it, you walk away, and that's Square Enix's baby from that point on. And probably after that, I bet you they have all the option in the world to just whore that title out into as many different remakes or sequels or spin-offs as you can possibly imagine, and you, the original creator, are sitting there going, no, what have you done to my brainchild? Like, the original game might be your perfect envisionment, maybe, and that's...
if you're lucky.
That's saying that, like... Because I'm imagining that a person with the idea of said game also does not necessarily know who to go to for all the other little details, like art and programming, yada yada yada.
Battle systems.
Where are they going to get these creators? Are they getting it from a Square Enix resource pool, or do they then get to go to whomever they choose to help develop this? Because if you go to Square Enix developers, then they're shaping that game in their image anyway, despite the fact that you got this really cool idea. There's just too many unanswered questions at this point, I think.
Really, it's relying, I think, too much on the fans to get it started for them, and really we shouldn't have to be relying on, from the way I'm looking at it...
Well, we shouldn't have to give a big budget, like, Hollywood dollar sort of video game company money to make more video games.
Like, this is the argument some people wanted to use on Mighty No. 9, but I think it applies more over here.
Well, yeah, because in the case of Mighty No. 9, like, these are guys who really... They're a startup.
Right.
They're a startup, and they haven't developed games yet under that particular... what was the name of the company they called themselves? Concept?
Concept, yes.
Concept hasn't done anything yet. I mean, yes, these are a whole bunch of different developers who have programmed and created before, but not under the Concept umbrella. Therefore, those guys did not have money just lying around. Square Enix, though, like, they roll in dough from Final Fantasies, whether the Final Fantasies are good or not. They still make bank. Like, what? I don't understand why we're giving money to Square Enix to publish a game that...
It's like telling them, here's my Lego set, you mess this up.
Well, I think the only thing... Like, you would have to be somebody who was like, there is no way my idea will be seen unless I pitch it to a big name like Square Enix, and Square Enix gives me, the, I am blanking on vocabulary.
Because basically...
Square Enix basically advertises for them, otherwise no one will have ever heard of said game.
But of course the biggest problem there is that once you sign it over to them, they have carte blanche to do whatever they want with that property.
Most likely, yes. Of course, I'd have to really read up on what their copyright stuff will be, because again, it's not all up on their website just yet. Though they do say that you can send them questions and opinions directly to collective@square-enix.com. So you can ask them questions and junk, but really, what you want to look forward to is GDC Next, November 5th through 7th at the Los Angeles Convention Center. And that's where they're going to be talking more about this initiative.
Okay.
So we're gonna find out more in a month. So
yeah, we'll probably get back to this.
Yeah, we'll probably follow up on it.
Because I'm iffy. As far as Square Enix is concerned, I'm iffy.
Yeah, of course, I am too.
Okay.
I guess I'm done.
Yeah. Okay, moving on to our next topic. Like I said earlier, this topic is going to be about a show that just premiered today on Crunchyroll. If you have a premium account, you'll be able to watch it immediately. For most other people, you might have to wait a few days. But it's a series called Samurai Flamenco. Now, this show is geared more towards people who are already fans or are aware of tokusatsu, of course, the special effects shows that, you and I are fans of.
Uh-huh.
And it follows a young man by the name of Masayoshi who idolized, tokusatsu superheroes growing up and never got it out of his head that he couldn't be one. So he decides upon reaching a certain age that he wants to become this hero without having undergone, cybernetic surgery or, any number of other origin stories that, would give a person powers. And along the way, he runs into a cop by the name of Goto, who continually tries to convince him, hey, you're not really creating too much change here. You're only taking on the same street-level guys that I would. And they're trying to show the show as going back and forth between his idealism, Masayoshi's idealism, and Goto's realism about, what is heroism, what does it mean to be inspired by these characters, and how does that actually implement in a real world.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's the way the show sets itself up.
I'm really hoping that it doesn't go a supernatural route later and that it stays in the real world. That I think I would be a little crushed if they went in that direction.
Now, admittedly, after watching this first episode, I'm hopeful for it. It had a very fresh take on it.
Oh, it's a fun start.
Oh, it's a fun start. I can admit that I see a lot of myself in this main character with that sense of hero worship. You grow up watching these characters, or even not even growing up, over the last few years, getting into tokusatsu and things like that. You see it in the scene where he's talking to his cop friend Goto about, hey, you might miss it, but there's a lot of tear-jerking scenes in this old show.
Mm-hmm.
And that, of course, rings true to most fans of tokusatsu. You can think back to series like Kamen Rider Black, Jetman, or even more recent series, your Gokaigers, your Kamen Rider Wizards. There's scenes that move at your heartstrings. That get you. And the interesting thing about it is the way they're coming at it of this guy wants to be a hero, but not like the actors he's seen. He wants to be an actual on the street, bike riding, scarf toting hero.
Uh-huh.
And I find that a little weird because, as it's described in the show, Masayoshi is actually a male model from a talent agency there in Japan.
Well, that sounds very similar to how television actually works over there, if it's going in the direction that you might think it's going.
Well, because the question that I think the series begs is that, as some people would know, as far as casting goes over in Japan for, your various dramas and hero shows, generally they pull from a talent pool of actors from these different companies, put them here or there, try them out in a drama here, or a movie there, or a bit commercial part there,
mm-hmm.
and then build up the chops, maybe move them into a musical, and then eventually, your real jumping off point for a lot of these guys is getting into a tokusatsu show.
Mm-hmm.
Is, being the lead, or, starting off as a background character, or a, 5-episode character here or there, and then eventually, becoming the lead in a show. And a lot of these guys that you see in shows like Gokaiger, Kyoryuger, Kamen Rider Gaim, Decade, what have you, got their start from talent agencies, got their start in musicals, your Prince of Tennises, your Black Butlers, things like that. They move up the ranks to become these heroes, and then from there, their careers take off, hopefully. So,
hopefully. I mean, it's not exactly lofty to start with. But...
It's not exactly lofty to start with, but I find it interesting that the show itself, Samurai Flamenco, doesn't note the fact that he's actually a lot closer to becoming or portraying a hero than most people in the world are. Because he's already that much closer to it, already being in
strange,
entertainment.
though? I mean, I understand that it's for the sake of television, but at the same time, it's like, did this guy really not think about this? Like, if he wanted to be a hero, he technically could, if he just started focusing harder on acting and learning how to sing, potentially, which I'm sure It seems like they're painting it like it's gonna go down that route.
Right.
But, like, who doesn't think about that when they're that huge of a fan?
I know, and it's funny because they paint him as this uber fan. You know, this very zealous fan who's collected all the figures, made sure to get, you know, surround sound system and a big old projection screen to show other people this thing that he is so interested in and so invested in, to the point that he had to go out and commission a costume, several costumes, in fact. And it's interesting as far as that goes. I want to see them develop that a little bit more, but kind of like you said earlier, I don't want them getting into an actual, oh, all of a sudden now this world actually does have monsters, does have, you know, giant villains.
Yeah,
and
I really don't
robots.
want it to go that way. I want to feel like this guy is real, his situation is real,
Right.
and how does he figure out how to make himself happy when the thing that he wants doesn't technically exist?
Well, that's kind of what they go back to, is that in an earlier scene, Masayoshi and Goto, the cop, he explains to him that, you know, you can't really do this. You can't just go out, wear a costume, and expect to just be a hero. Basically the blank man argument. If you've got no training and all you have in mind is the show you knew as a kid, that's not gonna cut it.
Right.
I mean, heck, even a Kick-Ass had to learn to throw a punch. This guy knows poses, and poses don't win fights, despite what the show might teach you.
So, like, I'm wondering, like, this Uber fan, like, what Uber fan, if they're that serious about going out there, doesn't do everything that they can possibly do to achieve this lofty ideal that doesn't already exist? I think that's the one part that's leaving me not believing he's a real person.
Well, yeah, I understand that much as well. The thing they go back to is that, well, if I can't fight supervillains, if I can't fight monsters, then I'm going to take on the small crimes. I'm going to take on litterers and jaywalkers and things like that. And it's somewhat something we got into the last time we actually talked about Kick-Ass, but most recently in the news, it was over on Kotaku and also on Anime News Network. We had a guy just recently, a 44-year-old businessman over in Thailand, who decided to dress up as Kamen Rider 1 and go out and distribute toys to little kids.
Which is great. At the same time, there's people who are also actual costumed vigilantes out there going and doing the dirty work that the cops should be doing. I'm saying there's two different sides to being a costumed hero.
Yeah.
There's doing these very, very simple things. Like, obviously, this guy is never going to confront a bad guy ever. This guy handing out toys to kids. I wonder how much he speaks their language. Or if he just is like, oh, I'm just gonna throw this child a present, see you later, and then drives off.
Well, really, he wouldn't need to say anything, because when you think about it, these kids don't look any more than like 5-6 years old. They see this character larger than life right there in front of them on his signature bike. Like, this guy went so far as to have the Cyclone, Kamen Rider's bike, there with him, and he's got this bag of toys. He's basically Santa Claus to these kids, and they kind of make that illusion in the show too. Like, people still give out presents in Santa Claus's name even though there's no Santa. And kind of relating that to himself, Masayoshi says, shouldn't people still be seeking out justice, essentially, even when there's no superheroes? I want to give them a superhero. I want to be an ally of justice, he says. And there's kind of that, where do you make that distinction between just being a nice, good, upstanding citizen and coming to terms with the fact that you were just really heavily influenced by these special effects shows? Like, where's the balance there?
Yeah, and I don't know that the character has balance. I don't know that some people wanting to run around in costume doing one thing or the other also have that balance. Especially the vigilantes, who maybe some of them are doing it because they think that it's the right thing to do, but I think others probably think, this is really cool to be going out here and beating up bad guys, this is so freaking cool.
Well, yeah, and you see that very much in this character. Like, there is that element of, yes, I very much believe that I'm doing this in the name of justice, but at the same time, you can't deny that he knows when he's posing, he feels cool. He feels validated. in doing this. And, you know, towards the end of the episode, he more or less kind of gets a little bit of a backbone as to the approach he wants to take. You know, instead of being all lofty and talking, you know, people care about you and you should go home and, you know, talk to your parents. You know, he kind of brings it down to earth and be like, hey, you guys are being annoying. The safest thing you can do is go home. Get out of here. You're a nuisance. And if they keep up that realism with him, I might gravitate toward him a little bit more. I mean, I already identify with him a bit, you know, as a fan, but I'd like to see a positive representation of a tokusatsu fan through the show.
Yeah, I can see your reasoning for that.
Because it's very easy to fall back into that, you know, the creepy old guy huddled up in his room, surrounded by his figures. The only light is coming from the monitor, and it's playing nonstop marathons of all these shows.
Yeah, I'm sort of familiar with a number of people like that.
Right.
Not
and
just one, but a large volume.
You know, you people listening, you might know some people like that as well.
You might be that person, I'm just saying.
Hey, I didn't say that.
I did, I sure did.
Okay, you sure did. But yes, the show itself, as far as I'm concerned, shows a lot of promise. I want to see where they go with it. They show through the opening this design that apparently Masayoshi has in his head of this original character of his, Samurai Flamenco, his hero persona. And will he ever become a hero? I guess that's really the draw of the show. I like it that it starts off at the very beginning with this little line between Goto and another officer, like, hey, does Kamen Rider's mask count as a helmet? Because if it doesn't, you know, he's technically riding a bike without a helmet.
And therefore he's riding around illegally, and somebody should stop him.
Like, that's funny to me.
That's a little funny. Too bad it was, like, the only line like that.
Yeah.
In the whole episode, but, you know, they've got a whole series to go.
Yeah, they've got a full run, as far as I know. But yeah, I would definitely recommend checking this out if you're a fan of tokusatsu, or if you just want a little... It's kind of slice of life, because there's not anything too outrageous, as far as I can tell. Hopefully they don't go the outrageous route and actually introduce, you know, monsters of the week and things like that. But it's a nice change of pace, considering we just got off, you know, the Attack on Titan train. And
well, Samurai Flamenco is on Crunchyroll right now. If you are a subscribed member to Crunchyroll, you can see it right now since it just aired.
Right.
If you're not, just wait a week and you'll be able to see it legally for free without having to sign up for any sort of membership.
Admittedly, the subs are a little fuzzy in places, but you should get the idea.
Yeah, it's not enough to ruin it. Not in my personal opinion.
But yes, I would recommend it. Go ahead and check it out. It's on Crunchyroll now.
Awesome. What else do we have going on?
Well, the other thing we have to go on is The Good Doctor.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so there had been rumors for the past week about this bit of news that people were trying to track down, and a lot of people were wondering, okay, is it true? Is it not true? Did they really find this stuff?
The truth of the answer is yes.
Yes.
There are episodes indeed found of the second Doctor that were previously thought to be lost. Where were these tapes found exactly?
Of all places, they were actually found in Nigeria.
What were they doing there?
Well, what happened was, as far as I can understand it, is that when the BBC...
And this is according to who? Anime News Network?
Superhero Hype, but it's also been listed on various other websites. What happened was BBC had master tapes that they would make copies of to distribute to other countries that would show Doctor Who, much like how we would have in the 70s, 80s, 90s, what have you, watch it on PBS. Over here, those weren't the original tapes. They were made from master tapes. Uh-huh. And, they were given over here because you don't want to give away your masters.
Of course. Of course, not that the BBC particularly cared about their masters, because they were just like, what do we need these for? Woo! And then they either got destroyed or recorded on top of, and
or just lost.
BBC, you were just plain stupid.
Yeah, and so as a result of that, for the longest time, since those doctors, people have had to rely on fan creations to find out about these episodes, to watch these episodes.
I can attest to that, because, see, I'm a very OCD sort of person, and I cannot watch current Doctor Who because I have not seen all previous Doctor Who. Like, it doesn't even matter that it's a reboot to me. That doesn't matter. I gotta start from the beginning and go all the way to the end in chronological order. For me and my poor OCD brain, I cannot get it to think otherwise. There's just no way. So the problem I was having was that I was starting with First Doctor, right? And First Doctor and Second Doctor have large hunks of missing episodes.
Yes.
However, there are in fact audio recordings of each and every single episode in existence. So they had created radio dramas out of these audio recordings that fans had made. So, past the audio dramas, taken off of the recordings of the television shows, people then recreated the episodes by taking screenshots, or there are still some production photos that continued to float around, either in magazines or online, what have you. They were able to reconstruct fairly decently these episodes, and I was able to figure out, oh, this is what has been going on, even in the place of episodes that don't exist for some reason.
Now, the interesting thing that you bring up there is that some of these were just spliced together sound with screenshots.
Yes.
They're actually having to do that for one of these sets of episodes, because out of these 9 episodes that have been recovered, part of them belong to a storyline called, right here, Web of Fear. And as far as the footage that was recovered, episode 3, that footage is still missing.
Mm-hmm.
So what they're actually having to do, officially the BBC is having to take stills with the original audio, and they are making their own recreation via the way a fan would, but officially made by the BBC.
Which
to complete the story.
I'm kind of sitting here thinking, is there a reason why you didn't do this any sooner, BBC?
Yeah, that begs the question. Like, if you knew you had masters, or copies of masters floating around all over the world, why did you just now find them? Like, 1, wouldn't people be looking for them? And 2, wouldn't you have sent somebody out sooner? And 3, wouldn't somebody else working at the BBC have thought, hey, didn't we make copies of these?
Didn't we send them someplace else? Like, that having been said too, if that's the case that they were sending them around the world to different places, what about checking other countries? Or have they already done that? Because if they're only just now checking where did you just say? You just said it to me.
Nigeria.
Nigeria.
Over in Africa.
If they only just now got around to checking out Nigeria, where they themselves sent copies off of their masters, what? Like start checking other countries. You shipped them elsewhere, didn't you? The other episodes have to be there.
Logically speaking, there's a high probability that somebody's got a copy somewhere. It's kind of like the same argument with the original footage of or the original cut of Star Wars. Even if, the originals have been tampered beyond all hell by George Lucas, somebody's still got a Laserdisc copy lying around somewhere.
Right, and then, of course, we've got the original Star Wars original trilogy DVD release, which makes me very sad they chose the Laserdisc copy to release, because it came with both the special edition version and the original version, which was just lifted off the Laserdisc. It's not a very clean version.
Okay.
The VHS version that they released just before the special editions came out is really the cleanest possible version, untouched otherwise, that you can possibly get of Star Wars. But all that said and done, you can still find them.
Now, actually, going back and double-checking the story here, what actually happened is somebody just stumbled across it. Kind of similarly to the story we had a while back of somebody finding the oldest known anime.
Uh-huh.
It was basically that, but Doctor Who. Somebody was looking through a storage room that was full of dust. They were uncovering some canisters, and boom, there's one labeled Doctor Who. they check it out, and sure enough, it's the old episodes.
Well, then start asking questions about the other countries that you sent your tapes to. Like, start doing your research. Like, who did we send it to? Oh, we sent it to this guy. Oh, well, his studio doesn't exist anymore. Well, then somebody from that studio must have it.
What I'm thinking here is this. Like, we have shows like Storage Wars, right? Like, people go around and bid sight unseen on these potential treasure troves of stuff that people have just left abandoned. Why can't we get a show like that, or at least a team like that, of people who just go around to these different studios around the world and just try to track down lost footage of thing?
Mm-hmm.
You know, just look for old Doctor Who, look for old TV specials long gone, you know, a missing Christmas special for Star Wars, I don't know, just anything that you could possibly imagine. If you think it's lost, somebody's got to have a copy of it somewhere.
Yeah, there's too many people and too many hoarders out there. Too many super fans who are like, I'm going to need this for some reason someday.
Or maybe, you know, they were hoarding so long and they got, you know, caved in by their junk pile / treasure, and somebody's got to go dig in through an old house, old storage container, and find this stuff.
Uh-huh.
Because now, you know, after having found this stuff, it's available on iTunes now, remastered. That's a very quick turnover.
Well, when did they find it? Does it say?
Well, I remember this story coming up, I think about 2 weeks ago.
Oh, they cleaned it up that quickly?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That is a quick turnover for something like this.
Yeah.
Like, that tells me probably this was still in very good condition then.
They had to have been. I mean, which means, like, it had to have been stored fairly properly, because film that old deteriorates.
At least 50 years old.
Well, pushing 50.
No, pushing 50, I should say. At least 40, pushing 50.
Uh-huh.
Like, that's a while that you got to be sitting there in the dark in a film canister.
That you have to hope to God hasn't been opened improperly.
And given that part of the world, you know, hadn't been, you know, the storage area hadn't been burned down due to war or famine or riots or what have you, and this thing managed to survive.
So somebody somewhere has been storing it just fine. So somebody somewhere else probably also has better facilities with better storage and is still holding on to it. I mean, that just makes sense to me.
Now, to put it in perspective, there's still 27 Doctor Who stories that we haven't found yet, that are still not quite on the map.
Mm-hmm.
I say not quite because now this gives me hope that eventually these things will get found, get tracked down, remastered, and then eventually everybody will have access to it.
Okay.
Because, you know, as it stands, now we live in a world that is more accepting of Doctor Who. You know, not even 10 years ago were people, you know, if you brought it up, it was like in secret, like, hey, you ever heard of Doctor Who? Yeah, I've heard of it. I got some VHS tapes. You want to go watch them? Okay. Whereas now, it's like you can't walk through the mall without somebody wearing a keep calm and don't blink shirt, or a bow ties are cool shirt, or waving a sonic screwdriver.
And then running around and pointing it at things and stuff, and then somebody will point it at a door, and then somebody else will be like, no, you can't point it at a door because that door is wood, and...
Yeah.
I've heard enough crap. I can't take it.
But basically, yes, I think we have the manpower, we have the tools, we certainly have the time. Let's find these missing 27 stories. What's taking so long?
Alright, everybody, let's do this. Leroy!
Did he just take off? Did he just take off after that footage? And then we party wiped.
He just did that. He just went in there. He just went to Nigeria.
You just sent Leroy Jenkins to Nigeria, and now we've lost all the footage. Good job. I hope.
Damn it, Leroy!
Leroy, you had one job.
It's not my fault.
Oh.
I wanted to make mention again, since I guess we're wrapping up this topic.
Yeah, pretty much. But yes, 2 stories now, The Web of Fear and The Enemy of the World, are now available on iTunes.
With more coming, right? I would assume, if they found the others.
If they found the others, yes, more coming. But definitely, these 2 stories are now available, featuring Patrick Tron as the second Doctor. Go check them out now.
Alright, that having been said, I wanted to make mention again that, and we really should have mentioned it at the top of the show, but again, Beyond the Black Rims is currently being sponsored by the Southwest Animation and Gaming Expo.
Yes.
Coming January to February of 2015, and we just released information about a whole new slew of guests and everything, and you should really go check it out because it's over at swagexpo.com. And we've got information about if you want to participate in our dealer's room, or if you have any sort of information regarding a panel that you would like to host at our event. We're currently taking panel submissions.
Really, the easiest way to keep up with us is there's the Facebook page. You can go over there and like that.
Well, I'll go ahead and put a link to the Facebook page in the description below, as well as the Twitter and Tumblr account. And I'll go ahead and link to swagexpo.com as well. But, and currently, badge prices are just $25, so this would be a great opportunity. Otherwise, it's gonna go up by $5, and I know in this economy,
But I need that $5.
I need that $5 to inflate my tire several times.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, $5 goes a long way, so get in on the ground floor while you can, guys. It's gonna be great.
just do it.
Just
do it.
Just do it. Like, what are you waiting for? Okay, we better stop.
Yeah, okay.
That having been said, I'm glad you guys were here along with us. Are we going to do a live show next week? It'll be our 10th episode of the season.
By definition, we still are keeping to that, aren't we?
We should be, yeah.
Okay, so then more than likely next week, just to give you guys prep, and we might cut a promo, sometime within the next day or so, to let you guys know, next week's episode will be a live episode.
It will be this next Thursday. I'm not entirely sure what date that is. That'll
be the 17th.
I don't know the time exactly yet. We've been doing them at like 8 o'clock Central Time,
8:30,
right?
somewhere around there.
But we'll post a more exact time a little bit later. If you're following us on Twitter or Tumblr or something to that effect, we'll be posting it there. But we'll also cut another promo within these next 2 days so that you'll know exactly what the time frame is. But that will be over at my twitch.tv account, and again, that's at twitch.tv/MarsGirl.
And if you guys have any suggestions for stories you might want to hear, or even, comments on today's topics, you can hit us up on Twitter. I'm at JoshKnight1st.
And I'm at MarsGirlProd.
So yeah, until next week's live show, thanks for sticking with us.
And, yeah, that sounds good. I blanked on closing.
It's okay. What's the name of the show?
Oh, well, this is Beyond the Black Rims.
With?
Well, I'm Mars Girl.
I'm Josh Knight the First.
And we'll see you next week live. Okay, thanks, bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye.